I've spent my life traveling the world. I've seen the earth change and men write history. My name is Yann Arthus-Bertrand. I'm a photographer and filmmaker. I've seen hundreds of countries, but one in particular has deeply affected me: Algeria. And so I wanted to tell its story. The story of Algiers, the white, the Kassab, a changing city. 10,000 years of history which have made this magnificent country. I wanted to show Kabylie, accompany the Algerians on their vacation roads, dream of the Mediterranean. I wanted to recount these spectacular landscapes, to tell of the land that is farmed, the gentle plains of the Metidja and the rolling hills of the Oran province. I wanted to tell the story of Spanish Oran and climb the rocks of Constantine, cross the Ores Mountains. And finally, I wanted to show the vastness of the Sahara and film a mirage for the first time, to see Gardaya, a desert miracle. Head into the depths of the Grand Erg, cross the Hurgar Highlands and the Tassili Nadjer, seeking a prodigious city, unique in the world, the city of Sefar, with its 15,000 cave paintings. This is the story we filmed with my friend Yazid Tizi. Yazid is part Algerian and part French too. His heart sways between our two countries. This is the story of our journey to Algeria. One can go to Algiers by plane, like any world capital, but it is by the sea that one really enters Algeria. Algiers, or Al Jazair, which means the islands in Arabic, after the 4 islands on the edge of the bay. And so once again I return to Algiers the White, traveling with so many others who live between France and Algeria. From the sea, one gets an idea of the city's history. Algiers is a mixture of Haussmannian architecture, imposing and strict, and of the Kassab, disorganized, Arab and Berber, somewhat bohemian. The two old cities vie for the best view of the bay. Algiers is a city that one has to climb. Exploring its history can be an energetic workout. A grand boulevard sweeps around the town and along the sea. The vaulted arcades were built under Napoleon III. The emperor was against the French colony in Algeria, but he lost the war in 1870, and so the colony flourished. The main post office in Algiers is like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, a beacon, a lighthouse. Without it, one is lost. It's a link between those overseas and the homeland. Money is transferred here. 4 billion euros enters Algeria every year via the post offices, and 7 billion by more informal channels, meaning everyone's pockets. Each generation looks out for the others. The density and narrowness of the streets also encourage a sense of family togetherness. I opened the door to the mosque known as Jama al-Yahud, or the Jews' Mosque. In fact, it's a converted synagogue, but the name has remained. It's in the former Rue Rondon, but the street is now called Rue Amar Ali, in memory of the FLN militant Ali Lapointe. The shopping street, Labi Ben Mehidi, was named after an FNL leader during the Algerian War. He died in 1957, suicided by French secret services. Then comes Saïd Bakel, Ali Boumengel, Mohamed Sidoun, and Ahmed Shaib. I feel I'm visiting Algiers escorted by an army of ghosts. It's a little disturbing. Listening carefully beneath the draped balconies, one can pick up on conversations, glimpse the daily life up above on the terraces. And then there is the Kasbah, Algiers' historic heart. One can sense the Ottomans, the Turks from the 15th century, and the memory of the pillaging pirate Barbarossa of the Sultan's sumptuous feasts. In reality, the Kasbah is a museum in ruins. Houses here are collapsing one after the other. The streets are narrow and ridden with secret alcoves. The lack of space means refuse is sometimes collected by donkeys, just like back in Ottoman times. The inhabitants live among themselves, among their own. It's funny, but I ultimately get the impression the Kasbah is an ideal setting for rebels and revolutionaries. It's not surprising that it was the main stage for the Battle of Algiers. After independence, it was squatted by countryfolk who migrated to the city. Overpopulation, ineffective public administration, no water, and insalubrity, it was a powder keg. In the 1990s, the quarter was a breeding ground for terrorism. Armed Islamists ruled the ghetto with a reign of terror. Things have calmed down since then, and the Kasbah can collapse in peace. Fewer people now live in the center of Algiers. The city stretches out to the suburbs and outskirts. 4 million inhabitants. Algiers has become the biggest city in the Maghreb. Close to the city center, Bab el-Oued borders the Kasbah. 100,000 people live in this area. In a housing crisis, people squeeze together as best they can. During colonization, this European neighborhood was already working class, a sensitive sector, a hotbed of protest. The aerials and dishes provide live football coverage and foreign channels. They were forbidden by the Islamists during the dark years. Some have tried to get a satellite signal using a couscous cooker. Be it myth or reality, a couscous cooker costs more than a satellite dish. It was pointless. The Islamist vice has since been loosened. There are some 8 million children of school age in the country, 8 million pupils. Thousands of teachers are being hired, schools and universities built. Boys and girls have almost equal access to education. The literacy rate in Algeria is the highest in the Maghreb. The average age here is 20. The Babeswa Science University caters to 35,000 students. It's part of an education system in Algeria that works well. A major challenge for a country with so many young people. A further challenge is the question of religion. The Byzantine Basilica of Our Lady of Africa reminds us we're still very much in the Mediterranean. It's affectionately known as Madame Afrique. The church houses a black virgin. Since the end of the French colony, the churches left vacant have been transformed into mosques. Come to think of it, they too face east. Our Lady of Africa has not been converted. It welcomes believers of every faith. It's even a symbol of tolerance, they say in Algiers. Algeria has around 17,000 mosques. 2,000 more are under construction. The biggest is in the Mohammedan district, facing the Bay of Algiers. It's a pharaonic project, a concrete giant, built by an army of Chinese workers. The Great Mosque of Algiers will have a minaret some 265 meters high, able to receive 120,000 worshippers at every prayer service. Islam is the state religion in Algeria, a traditional Sunni Islam respected or practiced by the majority of the population. The religious question has profoundly divided modern Algerian society. The country now advocates secularity and dialogue. At the Martyrs Memorial that overlooks the city, I recall the city's street names. So many heroes, so many martyrs. This monument pays homage to them. The martyrs of the revolution numbered between 300,000 and 1.5 million, mostly Algerian civilians. The military conflict became a civil war between the French and the Algerians, and within both communities, between partisans and the opposition. The country's independence was decreed on July 5th, 1962. The history of Algeria seems to alternate between occupation and liberation. Along the coast, close to Algiers, is the tomb of the Christian woman, the Royal Mausoleum of Mauritania, testifying to the presence of the Numids, the first settlers here. The ruins of Tipaza below reflect the influence of the Romans, Mediterranean Christendom, and the power of Byzantium. The last great turning point was the conquest of the Maghreb by Muslim Arabs in 670. The conquering Arabs came on horseback, a memory still very much alive, with a whiff of gunpowder and manure. The art of fantasia still lives on throughout Algeria. Exhibitions of traditional Arab horsemanship where riders display their ability and courage. Fantasia is often a wedding celebration ritual, but the essential sense remains. The horse is a symbol of rural force. Families which own horses are more influential. Horses represent down-to-earth good sense compared to the futile power of urban life. Fantasia has inspired many Orientalist painters, as has Algeria itself. I escaped from Algiers to see what the land of Algeria is like. I took the road to the east, towards Tizi Ouzou and Béjaïa. It leads to Anaba, ending at El Kala on the border with Tunisia. Algeria is a huge country, 4 times the size of France. It's the biggest country in Africa. I took the coast route, a hillside route carved into the rock, an invitation to wander and admire. The road to vacations and beaches. It passes close to an incredible 100-year-old lighthouse. The Cap Carbon lighthouse, apparently the tallest in the world. Rather odd considering that Algeria has few sailors. The beaches have been busy for several years now, which is new. During the dark years, bathing was frowned upon. Leisure activities were forbidden by the strict regime. But like with the couscous satellite dishes, the law became less strict, and people returned to the beaches with their families. Like on any beach around the world, boys go to flirt with the girls. But the girls don't want to be bothered, even as they enjoy the boys' attentions. It's ultimately just a game. Big brothers watch on, and parents are vigilant. A degree of decorum is required. The other craze at the moment is for cars. Cars are useful, but they're also a second home, out of public view. New or second-hand, hundreds of thousands are sold here every year, and everyone drives, both men and women. It's said there is one car for every 4 people in Algeria, babies and pensioners included. It's an impressive record. The vacation road also leads to commercial ports. The appeal of the sea is omnipresent. For many years, Algeria was deprived of many products. But consumption has tripled in just 10 years. Everything is imported: household appliances, furniture, luxury goods, clothes, food, and all these cars. Only the heroes of the revolution are exempt from import taxes. And so countless mujahideen ghosts have bought a car. Industry is gradually picking up. With iron from the Unza mines and gas from Hassi Messaoud, Algeria produces steel at El Hadjar, close to the Tunisian border. The huge steelworks is almost 100 years old. As it awaits badly needed improvements and modernization, it struggles to produce enough steel for the country's requirements in construction and machinery. This factory could ultimately make the Anaba region's fortune. This was once the Mediterranean's leading mining area. Anaba resembles a seafront metropolis, both outmoded and appealing. Its name comes from the word for the ziziphus, the oriental tree that grows in the area. Above all, Anaba looks like a prosperous town with very French architecture, from when it was an industrial center renowned for its metalworking. The town was then called Boun and was already an attractive place. Like today, families came for the sea breeze and cafe terraces. People also came on a pilgrimage to the Christian church that overlooks Anaba. I step inside the Catholic basilica. It is dedicated to Saint Augustine, a bishop of Berber origin, born in 354, whose thinking profoundly influenced Christian theology. Restored with the support of the Algerian state, this Catholic church still has its place in Muslim Algeria. It's symbolic. St. Augustine stood for the love of others. He was a humanist. I continue to the fishing port of El Kala. It's an attractive harbor with a forgotten church and 2 bell towers rising to the heavens. People came to pray before heading out to sea. The population of El Kala was very religious. It was once made up of Italians who came here to fish for sardines, and above all, red coral, red gold, which made the place famous and wealthy. The small cemetery on the hillside still has an Italian feel to it. It faces out to sea. Time has gone by, and the Mediterranean has changed too. People still fish for sardines, but the fish are becoming scarce. Along the docks, I hear fishermen calling out for the protection of the reef. Coral divers have decimated the coral, and along with it, the wildlife and whole shoals of fish that fed on the reef. Algeria lies along the sea, but it is not yet a maritime nation. There are few large vessels, but extensive localized coastal fishing. As elsewhere in the Mediterranean, fishermen complain about dwindling fish stocks, neighbors who plunder their resources, and the market that underpays them. As a result, the fishing ministry has produced a fishing plan, an aquaculture program for farming thousands of tons of bream, tuna, and prawns to finally be able to feed the country. Feeding the country is the most striking aspect of the plan. For in reality, Algeria is not self-sufficient. Considerable quantities of food have to be imported. How is it that Algeria still can't produce enough to feed its own children? I set out to see what the land looks like. Close to El Kala is a humid zone. Vast marshlands, the Berbers and Alger area. It's a vital zone for the whole region. Water is precious, as is the life that it nourishes. Berbers is a biosphere reserve, a World Heritage Site. It's the country's most productive natural area, with countless animal and plant species. The wealth of Anaba's agricultural lands comes from this humid zone. Green beans and other fruits and vegetables are grown here. Everything is done by hand. Almost 11 million Algerians live from agriculture, 1/3 of the population. I left El Kala and the Anaba Plain. I set out to discover the agricultural lands known as the Tell, which stretch as far as Oran on the other side of the country. The Algerians grow oranges in the Mitidja today, in part thanks to the hard work of French colonists who drained the land here. A majority of these fields were once unworkable. But today, around 1 million smallholdings share this fertile arable land. Agriculture has become a national priority. 39 million Algerians have to be fed. Today, Algeria is the world's biggest wheat importer per capita. In a strange historical twist, the grain comes from France, to a country that previously produced wheat for the French. But times have changed. There are 4 times as many mouths to feed. Thanks to oil money, Algeria has so far avoided the bread revolts that threaten much of the Mediterranean. But for how much longer? Before the Europeans arrived, the land was subject to users' rights, divided between the sovereign Turks and local tribes. 100 years of French colonization radically changed the situation. I saw the vast old colonial farms near Sidi Bel Abbes in the Oran province. The French produced wine and grain here. Settlers forced local tribes into exile or to become fellahs, poor peasants, basically simple workers. The Oran region and the Mitidja rebelled. The land sowed the seeds for resentment. The fellahs became falagas, or combatants. When independence came, the colonialists left. The vacant lots were reorganized. The land remained. Flowers replaced vines. I sometimes think that I could have been born here, and everything would have been very different. On the Oran plain, certain farms appear to be still vacant. It's the proletarian revolution. Workers have inherited the earth, but not the houses. They've built around the abandoned buildings. In some cases, there is little evidence of the original property, dismantled or in ruins. I took a little of the earth here, as a souvenir of all those who worked it. The fellahs, the nomads, and also the pieds noirs, born here but not Algerian, foreigners in France, bearers of a history much harsher than what both sides have reported. I take away a little of the land once loved by so many who are now absent, in the name of the land. Oil has ruled in Algeria since the 1970s. Alger, in the Oran region, is the third biggest refinery in the country. Crude oil is brought in from Hassi Messaoud in the middle of the desert. Tankers transport Algerian oil around the world. It's by far the country's greatest resource. The Oran region is also the starting point for a gas pipeline that passes beneath the Mediterranean and surfaces at Almeria in Spain. Europe is drip-fed by Algerian gas. It's an amusing historical turnaround. From the beginning, Oran has always been the most Spanish of Algeria's towns. It takes just one night to sail from Almeria to Oran. Andalusian sailors set out from Spanish shores to take possession of this bay in 902. They founded the city of Oran. In 1502, the Spanish built the fort and the Santa Cruz quarter. Other journeys followed, and Oran became a Spanish offshoot. Today, it's the capital of the Rai. There is music and song here, with some popular laments known around the world. Oran is only half the size of Algiers, but companies flock here for meetings and seminars. It's not New York, but the town is very much turned towards the future.
Je suis fidèle نبغى نتخلص سكر ها لا ديرش عليهم ها راهم خاطين الرب Je suis fidèle نبغى نتخلص سكر ها لا ديرش عليهم ها كانوا غايرين راني معلقة ماني متزوج ماني مطلق وياه ها كل يوم شالقة متموش تطلع كورنيش هيا علي
Oran has rather an infamous reputation. It's a party town, where people talk loudly and rather outrageously. Nights are often short here. Meanwhile, the city is young and dynamic. Business is flourishing. Part of the Spanish legacy is the bull ring in the town center. It was once used for sacrificing sheep for Eid al-Adha.
Allah ya Allah, ya Habib Allah, Allah ya Allah, ya Rasul Allah, sallu ala al-Nabi, ashabu ashraq, Muhammadan ya al-Munawwar, ya Zin al-Bashraq.
At the time, the city had the biggest European population. And yet Abd el-Kader's resistance against colonization was the most virulent here. Street names have changed. As in Algiers, I travel here with resistance heroes. Oran's Romano-Byzantine Sacred Heart Cathedral has been transformed into a library. Today's Pied Noir population views Oran with nostalgia, seeing the old house, the old neighborhood, smelling familiar smells, remembering the names of streets and former friends. A Franco-Algerian community program has enabled thousands of former residents to revisit their history and their personal memories. The city's historic square seems relatively modest today, but there is still the Opera House and these building fronts. The city's real heart, perhaps, can be found in the football stadiums. The whole of Algeria seems to be soccer crazy. I pursued my journey to the coastal villages of Gazahouet and Beni Saf. The colorful houses and churches are a modest legacy of history. The market halls in the town centers are still used. The wheel turns. Tlemcen was once the real seat of power in the region. In the Middle Ages, the town was the capital of the central Maghreb. The Arab historian Ibn Khaldun talks about this Mansoura mosque, begun in 1303 and never completed. It's in a typical Maghreb style, built around a central courtyard, revealing its Arab Andalusian influences from the time of Al-Andalus. I leave the Oran Plain and head for Kabylie and Algeria's mountains. I'm going to the Tizi Ouzou region in the other direction. I shall go as far as Constantine and visit the Oasis Mountains, perhaps the desert too. Kabylie. I enter the Jura Hills. After the open plains, it looks like a natural fortress. In fact, the region went down in history for being the scene of the Soumam Conference in 1956, a crucial element in Algeria's battle for independence. Here in the scrub of olive and fig trees, the Algerians swore to return the land to the people. No doubt the mountain air provides inspiration and a sense of critical values. It's customary here to build villages high up. Each rocky spur is inhabited. The houses have few windows, and winters can be cold. Arabic is spoken here, but the mother tongue is Kabyle. It's a Berber language, similar to Tamashek, spoken by the desert-dwelling Tuaregs. Further south, on Algeria's high plateaus, I came across an incredible Roman site, Jamila. The silent ruins testify to the importance of mountain dominance for the Romans. At the time, the Kabyles were part of the Numidians. The Romans called them barbarians, hence the name, Berbers. This majestic Roman city dates back to the time of the Emperor Nerva in the 1st century. It's a true mountain town, built on an outcrop 900 meters high at the intersection of two valleys. Jamila was probably very wealthy. It is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The abandoned city is a reminder that the Romans never truly conquered the Berbers. The Romans left, the Berbers stayed. To the south stands another Roman garrison, Timgad. Founded in the year 100 by Trajan, it was probably a base camp for Augustus' 3rd Legion. Every building evokes Rome's power. The Arch of Trajan, and Marcus Aurelius' eastern and western gates. The streets were paved with large rectangular limestone slabs, and the floors of houses with magnificent mosaics. Timgad was destroyed at the end of the 5th century by raiders from the Oasis Mountains, and its stone used for building throughout the region. But even in ruins, this site in the heart of Algeria is unique. It's an open-air lesson in urban design. Timgad exemplifies the expertise which gave rise to our modern cities. High on its plateau, Constantine embodies this Roman legacy. Formerly called Sirte, the Numidians' capital became a fortress, crisscrossed by Roman-style streets and avenues. It was in 313 under Constantine the Great. Constantine stands high on its rock, with a viaduct and bridges anchoring it to the surrounding land. It's known as the City of Bridges, or the City of the Ancient Rock. Constantine is a unique jewel in Algeria's crown. A city of culture, it is also the city of the ulamas, the theologians who study the Quran and prophetic tradition. The Emir Abdelkader Mosque is home to a university, for a long time the largest in the country. Constantine is the third biggest city in Algeria today. Not far from Constantine is the resort town of Hammam Meskutin. Meskutin is a spa town with very hot waters laden with carbonates which form petrified cascades. It's known as the Bath of the Damned. These waters have treated skin diseases and respiratory ailments for centuries. Further south begins the Oasis region. It's the land of the Shawi people. The Shawi are Berbers. Like the Kabyles, the Shawi are a people of character. The Algerian War began here, with an ambush in these deep gorges. It was 1954. For attacks and organized action, the Rufi Canyon is an ideal maze for guerrilla warfare. The Romans and the Arabs in their time came up against the Shawi. To defend against invasion, they built their troglodyte homes deep within the rocky crevices. Since then, time seems to have stood still. The Shawi became stonecutters and polishers, a craft as hard and unforgiving as the arid land here. The nomadic Berbers and the scorched earth evoke the nearby Sahara. The desert seems to advance inexorably. One can see here an incredible experiment, a barrier against the desert. Hassi Baba, where a green barrage was planted in the 1970s. A utopic dream or a monumental feat? Who knows? Millions of trees were planted by man's hand. A whole forest of Aleppo pines, resinous trees which appreciate arid soils. The green belt was intended to encircle the Sahara. But the dream is haunted by pine processionary caterpillars which devour the pines. So what is this encroaching desert really like? I enter the desert at Biskra. It's literally an opening and a rampart, the wall of the Mzab Mountains. On the other side of Biskra, the landscape changes. It's a vast field of sheep. This desert steppe stretches to Jelfa and is renowned for its flocks. People come from all Algeria to buy a sheep for the Eid el-Adha feast. More than 4 million are sold each year to be sacrificed. The most highly prized breed bears the name of a village on the plain, Ouled Jalal. For a 10-year-old, one's first sheep is a key moment, much like passing a driving test or owning a car. This region was once covered in halfa grass, but animal farming has depleted the land. Summers are very hot. From now on, water and fuel reserves have to be carefully surveyed. In front of me stretches the biggest hot desert in the world. It covers an area the size of Australia. On the road ahead lie Elwed, Gardaya, El Menea, Timimu, Tamanrasset, Janet. 1,600 kilometers through the desert. The Trans-Saharan is an Ariadne's thread not to be relinquished. If you leave the road, you're lost. The desert here is not really sand, but rocks. An endless expanse of rocks stretching out as far as the horizon. As the sun rises, the temperature climbs too. The horizon line blurs, the relief becomes hazy. It's 35 degrees in the shade. The heat deforms the light, creating strange forms, mirages. They are deadly traps for any wayward traveler. As I reached the Elwed oasis, my first stop in the desert, I saw evidence of a prodigious dream. The dream of making the desert arable. Potatoes are planted here. All that's needed is water. The Sahara has vast stores of water deep down in the ground, the legacy of a distant past. It's fossil water that the rare desert rains attempt to replenish. The battle against the sands is unwinnable. Agriculture at Elwed is a modern-day mirage. As the water is pumped up, it becomes too salty, and so the fields have to be moved constantly. Originally, Elwed survived with date palms and subsistence farming. But 1 million trees have already died, asphyxiated. Even worse, the water in certain places had been polluted by human waste. Elwed is a large town. The city of 1,000 domes is home to over 100,000 people. Tourism attracts even more. With the installation of running water in homes, the deep-seated water reserves show signs of depletion. The new town of Elwed exposes its inhabitants to the realities of the deep desert south. I saw rain fall in the desert. The dunes glowed with strange colors. The raindrops slide into the sand, and so there is some water here. Further south, the road takes me to the gates of one of the desert's most beautiful cities. Gardaya, an 11th century citadel on the edge of the Grand Erg, or Sand Sea. Gardaya is the capital of the Mzab Pentapolis. According to legend, it owes its name to Daya, a beautiful young girl abandoned in a cave. Gardaya means Daya's cave. The perfection of the city is fascinating. The Mozabites were originally merchants who adhered to strict Muslim codes. Young children didn't attend public school before the age of 6 and were educated within the community. But public schooling is now obligatory for everyone, even in the middle of the desert. With an extraordinary unity, the town overlooks a centuries-old palm grove which provides fruit and vegetables and shade during the hot weather. It's an island of life in the great Saharan sand sea. Gardaya's secret is water. It's over 1,000 years old, and extraordinary irrigation techniques were developed here. Each oasis has a network of channels fed by wells or underground tunnels, called foggorers. Each channel pours water into a basin. The flow rate is carefully measured before the water is redistributed among the various gardens. Water shares are measured in fingers or half fingers. People here don't share the land, they share water, a law imagined by these men of the desert. Living here is a challenge for both men and beasts. They have all adapted to the environment. Many species wait for nightfall to venture out or to avoid predators. But for those with no choice, surviving requires incredible talents. After Gardaya, I head into the Great Sand Sea. It's a region of sand dunes, the area of 1/3 of France. The Grand Erg moves constantly as the wind moves the sand. It's a hard barrier to cross for the men of the desert. Caravans have to find a route between the few waterholes. The Grand Erg has mapped out man's pathways and the location of each oasis. After Gardaya, it's vital that we reach El Menea and Timimoun. We know we're approaching El Menea when we see its fortress, known here as a Kassab. El Menea, an oasis with 100,000 palm trees. The Kassab is typically Berber. It protected the inhabitants from raiders. The agriculture is of a specifically Saharan nature on 3 levels. Cereals and vegetables grow on the ground. Above are fruit trees, particularly oranges. And these are shaded from the sun by date palms. El Menea is a beautiful oasis, but its most incredible secret is on the edge of the town. A lake. In the midst of the desert, I find myself facing a vast expanse of water. The water is not drinkable. It's too salty, even for bathing. But the lake attracts birds migrating from Europe to Africa, rather like myself. Since time immemorial, Pink flamingos and storks have stopped off at this humid zone in the middle of the desert. Somehow they know where it is. Their very lives depend on it. Further south, the road takes me to a Kassab in the Dra Valley. There was no doubt a palm grove here at one time. The walls are built of stone and have resisted erosion from the desert winds. This Kassab is a mystery. It's said to be the last of the Jewish caravanserais. It was over 1,000 years ago when Semitic nomads traveled through the desert. Since then, the Kassab has gradually fallen into oblivion. Everything is here in this desert, buried in the sand. On the road to Timimoun in the middle of nowhere, we're sure the desert is sterile. But when you know where to look, you can even find truffles. These desert mushrooms are a gift provided by the meager autumn rains. Timimoun is an oasis of red clay due to the presence of iron oxide. The architecture here inspired Timbuktu and Djenné. Timimoun has recently begun to attract Algerian tourists. The Algiers middle classes even build holiday homes here. We enter by the Sudan Gate. Black Africa is not far away. Timimoun is at a crossroads and is therefore a market town. It's said the finest draperies in the Sahara were woven here. With modern-day globalization, the material now tends to come from China. Time erases history, like the sand in the Grand Erg. After Timimoun, the road crosses a reg, a desert pavement of rock fragments. Geologists' trucks have left their marks here in pursuit of oil. But these tracks are not to be followed. They lead to human folly. I take the road to Tamanrasset, Tam, the southernmost town in Algeria. Tam begins with a mirage of football on artificial grass. The town now has a university with 2,000 students from throughout the region. A stake in the town's future. Tamanrasset is changing, but is forever a city at altitude, with cold winters and burning summers. From any direction, it takes several days to reach the Tuaregs' crossroads town. To the market, Kelajer Tuaregs come from Tassili Nadjer, Kelatram from Gao, and Kelair from Agadez and Timia. Convoys enter and leave the town constantly. People come to Tam for supplies. They speak Tamashek. They listen to the news and gossip. I leave Tamanrasset and head for the Hogar and Tassili Nadjer, looking for the lost city of Sefar. The regional Tuaregs are the Kela Hagar, which literally means the people of the Hogar. Many families have abandoned nomadism and settled on the outskirts of Tamanrasset. The Tuaregs are nomadic animal farmers, sometimes merchants. Possession is a secondary notion. People own nothing, or very little. A little land, goats and dromedaries. It's a matriarchal society. The women owned the tents and the few pieces of furniture. Every bit of wood is carefully saved for cooking on the desert sand. The Hogar begins here, a huge plateau at an altitude of more than 2,000 meters, totally eroded and studded with craters. The whole history of Earth is here. Hundreds of volcanoes, like Attacor, have raised 4 billion-year-old granite to the surface. The bedrock has been pulverized into cliffs, outcrops, and rocky crags. There isn't a sound. No noise comes to disturb this place. From here, the eye turns towards Assikrem, the mythical plateau still home to the refuge of a French Catholic hermit, Brother Charles de Foucauld. He was a soldier, an explorer, and then a priest, who defended secularism, women, the role of Islam, universal education, and the abolition of slavery. He lived with the Berbers and devoted most of his work to Tuareg culture, establishing the first Tamashek dictionary. Charles-Eugène de Foucault de Pontbriand died in these mountains in 1916. Up until the end, he was fascinated by what he saw from his hermitage. The Sahara gave him a glimpse of creation. Crossing this desert is a strange experience. You walk by yourself, but you're not alone. Every step is a dialogue. You experience the surprising nature of the sand, the texture of the rocks. You follow the curving trail, become part of the weds, the shadows of the acacia trees. The desert is a secret world which speaks only to those who pass through it. The tagelmust is the only solution against the biting desert winds and sun. Draping this turban veil is an art. The color is a code. White is a sign of respect. Respect for those who offer their hospitality. It's customary to drink 3 green teas and to talk of the latest news from the trail. The first tea will be as bitter as death, the second mild like life, and the third as sweet as love. This is a certainty for the free men who place one foot before the other. My own steps lead me to the Tassili Nadjer, a sandstone plateau over 1,000 meters high, eroded and sculptured over time. For millions of years, the land has been scarred and carved by water. In drier times, in turn, the wind wears down and polishes the rock. Daytime heat and nocturnal cold split the stone. Alone on this vast expanse, I saw the earth transform. I drank water from gelters, careful not to drink at the same time as the goats. I wanted to taste this life so far from Algiers, in a land that seems as big as a continent. Instead of goats, we see mouflons, more used to the relief. At dawn and dusk, the animals seek water and plants to graze on. It is close to the gueltas, the natural pools in the rock, that they're at the greatest risk from man. The species is endangered, and these regions provide a refuge. The only humans I come across are dead, tombs which date back to Neolithic times. The oldest are around 6,000 years old. They are simple enclosures. In the middle, a tumulus contains a funeral chamber. Only men were buried here, lying on their side, their heads towards the east. I entered the biggest open-air Neolithic museum. One has to come here to believe it, to see the city of Safar, the biggest troglodyte city in the world. A city of stone, with huge facades, perpendicular avenues, squares and streets. Safar has been inscribed on the World Heritage List since 1982, but not for the extraordinary creation of the winds, but for what is hidden inside. "15,000 drawings and paintings decorate the walls of this monumental city. Tassili in Alger is one of the biggest collections of prehistoric cave art in the world. One discovers visual accounts of wars, conquests, and lost civilizations. And how this desert was not always so arid. It was once a savanna, inhabited by giraffes, buffalo, and rhinoceri. 15,000 artworks recounting 6,000 years of climate change, animal migration, and the evolution of human life in the remote Sahara. A grandiose history of the desert. A tale with its classic share of mystery, starting with these strange beings, which appear in certain drawings, their form neither animal nor human. Few travelers venture beyond Sefar. Almost no one arrives this far. On the edge of Algeria, I saw the red Tadrat Desert. I contemplated the world's infinite beauty, never to be forgotten. And then I kneeled. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I saw a whole people who had welcomed me. I take with me a memory of all their faces, all their regards. Thank you.